In the powerful name of Jesus, we take authority over fear, doubt, and stagnation. We declare open doors, divine connections, and unstoppable momentum starting today. If you believe God is shifting your season, subscribe and declare amen. This is your moment, your divine appointment with destiny. As you step into this new week, heaven is leaning in your direction, waiting for your voice to rise and command the atmosphere. You are not waking up to another ordinary morning. You are stepping into a realm of spiritual authority where your words shape outcomes, your prayers shift environments, and your declarations anchor divine favor into every day ahead. Today, as we release powerful morning prayer and prophetic decrees inspired by the teachings of Dr. Cindy Trimm, chains will break, clarity will come, and strength will arise within you. You are here to speak life into your week, to align your steps with God's purpose, and to activate supernatural momentum that nothing can stop. This is the hour to stand firm, speak boldly, and command your week with the power God has placed inside you. The power of intentional morning prayer to align your spirit, mind, and day with divine purpose begins long. Before words come out of your mouth, it begins with the awareness that every morning is a spiritual doorway. Each new day is a gate, an opening, a threshold between what was and what can be. And the posture you take when you step through that threshold determines the atmosphere you will carry into every moment that follows. When you rise with intention, when you speak with authority, when you quiet your mind enough to hear the whisper of God guiding you, you are not simply starting your day, you are activating the divine blueprint written over your life. Intentional morning prayer is not routine, it is spiritual architecture. It structures your internal world so you can navigate your external world with clarity, strength, and alignment. It reconnects you to the source before anything else has the opportunity to drain, distract, or distort your focus. It reminds you that you are not entering your day alone, that heaven is backing you, and that God's presence is already ahead of you, preparing the way. When you pray intentionally, you are reminding your spirit that it leads, not your emotions, not your fears, not your circumstance, and not the noise of the world that rushes to claim your attention the moment you wake up. You are reestablishing dominion over your thoughts, your choices, your responses, and your atmosphere. Before you check your phone, before you engage with people, before you step into your responsibility, you anchor yourself in the presence of the one who already knows everything your day will contain. There is a dimension of strength, clarity, and strategy that only emerges in the stillness of morning prayer. That early stillness becomes a sanctuary where burdens are lifted before they even form, and where wisdom is granted before you encounter the situations that require it. You begin to notice that intentional prayer creates a shield around your emotions, so things that once provoked you, discouraged you, or drained your energy no longer have the same access to your spirit. A prayed up mind becomes a fortified mind. A prayed up heart becomes a guarded heart. A prayed up spirit becomes an activated spirit. And when your spirit is activated, you begin moving through your day with a sense of purpose that cannot be shaken by trivial distractions. You begin to recognize divine promptings, subtle redirections, and hidden opportunities that you would have otherwise overlooked. You become more sensitive to what God is guiding you toward and what He is steering you away from. This is the supernatural advantage of intentional morning prayer. It sharpens your discernment, elevates your awareness, and trains your spirit to lead with wisdom rather than impulse. As you commit yourself to morning prayer, you start noticing that your thoughts align more naturally with divine truth. Negative thinking loses its grip. Anxiety loses its voice. Self-doubt loses permission to operate. Prayer recalibrates your mental environment. It filters out the noise, the lies, the confusion, and the spiritual interference that tries to distort your focus. Your mind becomes clearer, more disciplined, more anchored in faith. You begin thinking on a higher frequency, one that aligns with possibility, divine timing, and purpose. When your thoughts align with God's thoughts, your decisions align more naturally with your destiny. You stop moving from a place of reaction and start moving from a place of revelation. And revelation is what opens doors, transforms seasons, and elevates your life into its next level. Intentional morning prayer also reshapes your emotional posture. Instead of waking up overwhelmed, uncertain, or drained, your spirit begins the day replenished. Prayer becomes a spiritual reset button that clears out residue from the previous day, things that frustrated you, conversations that lingered, disappointments that weighed on you, or fears that tried to creep into your thinking. In morning prayer, all of it is released. You begin to feel lighter, stronger, and more grounded. Your emotional resilience increases. You start carrying peace into environments that lack peace, joy into situations that feel heavy, and confidence into moments where doubt used to dominate. This internal transformation begins to affect how you interact with people, how you handle challenges, and how you interpret situations. Emotional stability becomes one of your spiritual weapons, and prayer is what keeps it sharp. But the power of intentional morning prayer goes beyond internal alignment. It also sets in motion supernatural forces that work on your behalf throughout the day. Prayer opens doors that human effort alone cannot open. It dismantles obstacles that would have otherwise slowed you down. It creates divine appointments, orchestrates timing, and aligns circumstances in ways that exceed logic. When you pray intentionally, you send your words into the spiritual realm, and those words begin shaping the environment you will walk into. Angels are dispatched. Breakthroughs are activated. Solutions begin forming, resources begin moving toward you, hearts begin softening, opportunities begin shifting into your path. Even challenges that arise later in the day start losing their power because prayer already went ahead of you to prepare the atmosphere. Nothing catches heaven off guard, and when you pray, you align yourself with that same supernatural preparedness. Intentional morning prayer positions you to walk in divine authority rather than human pressure. You don't carry the weight of your day alone. You carry it with God. You don't enter situations merely as yourself. You enter as a vessel empowered, guided, and supported by divine strength. You begin to notice that you speak differently, respond differently, think differently, and walk differently. You exude a quiet confidence that comes from knowing you have already surrendered your day to the one who controls all outcomes. This gives you stability in uncertainty, courage in difficulty, and peace in moments where others would crumble. Prayer builds within you the strength to endure, the wisdom to navigate, and the boldness to take consistent action aligned with your purpose. It breaks the cycle of rushing into your day unprepared and replaces it with a rhythm of spiritual preparedness that influences every part of your life. Another dimension of intentional morning prayer is the way it trains your heart to stay grateful. Gratitude is not just a positive emotion. It is a spiritual frequency that attracts divine favor. When you begin your day acknowledging God's goodness, recognizing His presence, thanking Him for breath, life, strength, provision, protection, and purpose, your entire perspective shifts. Gratitude elevates your spirit above negativity. It diffuses discouragement before it takes root. It opens you to receive more because you have honored what you already have. Many blessings are unlocked simply because gratitude cleared the spiritual atmosphere for them to manifest. Morning prayer infused with gratitude becomes a magnet for divine favor. And as you walk through your day, you begin recognizing how God is moving in ways you may have previously overlooked. Intentional morning prayer also strengthens your discipline and character. When you choose to put God first consistently, you develop spiritual habits that shape your identity. You learn sacrifice. You learn consistency. You learn focus. These qualities do not stay confined to your prayer life. They spill over into your work, your relationships, your goals, your health, and your mindset. People who pray intentionally in the morning often become more structured, more patient, more strategic, and more grounded. Prayer builds not only your spirit, but also your personality. It refines your character, helping you respond from a place of grace, maturity, and wisdom. Over time, you begin seeing growth in yourself that prayer made possible. Through intentional morning prayer, you begin activating the creative power of your words. What you speak creates the world you walk into. Morning prayer helps you speak life, speak faith, speak victory, speak clarity, speak protection, and speak alignment. You stop allowing your day to tell you how to feel and start telling your day how it will unfold. You start recognizing that your voice carries spiritual weight, that your declarations carry authority, and that your words can break cycles, shift outcomes, and invite divine intervention. Morning prayer turns your tongue into a tool of creation rather than a reaction to whatever comes your way. As you practice intentional prayer daily, you begin building spiritual momentum. Each morning builds upon the previous one, creating a rhythm of divine alignment. Your spirit becomes more attuned. Your mind becomes more focused. Your actions become more purpose-driven. Your days become more productive, more meaningful, and more grace-filled. It becomes clear that prayer is not something you do out of ritual. It becomes something you do out of recognition that life simply works better when God is invited into the very beginning of it. And this awareness becomes the fuel that shapes who you are becoming: stronger, wiser, more resilient, more grounded, more aligned with your divine purpose, and more prepared to step into everything God has for you, speaking declarations that activate spiritual authority and shape the outcomes of your entire week. Is not merely a practice of speaking positive words. It is the releasing of divine power through intentional language that aligns with heaven's design for your life. Declarations are spiritual technology tools that God has placed in your mouth to command the direction of your week, the posture of your mind, and the boundaries of your atmosphere. Every time you speak a declaration rooted in the Word of God, you are legislating in the spirit realm. You are establishing what is allowed and what is not allowed to enter your life. You are drawing a line between divine intention and demonic interference. You are choosing to partner with heaven instead of circumstance, faith instead of fear, authority instead of passivity. Declarations are your way of shaping reality with your words before reality has an opportunity to shape you. Your week does not begin when the calendar flips. It begins when your mouth opens. When you speak declarations intentionally, you position yourself to walk into a week pre-framed with purpose, power, and divine protection. Declarations carry force because they do not originate from human will alone. They originate from spiritual identity. You are not speaking as someone trying to convince yourself that things will be better. You are speaking as someone who has been given dominion, authority, and the right to influence the atmosphere around you. You are not begging God for outcomes. You are enforcing what He has already made available. You are not hoping things will shift. You are commanding the shift based on divine promise. This is why declarations work. They are not just words spoken into the air. They are words backed by the authority of heaven. When you speak with conviction, with alignment, with faith, and with clarity, heaven responds. Angels respond. Situations respond. Even resistance begins to weaken because your declarations dismantle the footholds. The enemy tries to build through fear, confusion, delay, and emotional instability. There's a creative power in your voice that many people never fully tap into. God spoke the world into existence, and because you were created in His image, your words also carry the ability to create, dismantle, shape, and shift. When you speak declarations over your week, you are not simply describing what you hope will happen. You are creating the conditions under which your week will function. You are shaping outcomes long before the situations arise. You are sowing words that will produce fruit in the days ahead. You are programming your mind, your spirit, and your environment to align with divine order. Every declaration becomes a seed planted into the field of your future. What you plant is what you eventually experience. This is why careless words produce chaotic outcomes, while intentional declarations produce structured, peaceful, and purpose-driven days. Declarations are powerful because they bypass emotional instability. They do not wait for you to feel strong. They make you strong. They do not wait for your circumstances to improve. They command improvement. They do not depend on external validation. They generate internal conviction. When you declare, "This week will be productive," "This week I walk in favor," "This week nothing will distract me," you are training your mind to align with expectancy rather than uncertainty. Your thoughts become more disciplined. Your emotions become more stable. Your decisions become more intentional. When you declare who you are, what you believe, and what God has promised, your spirit rises into a position of confidence that cannot be easily shaken by sudden problems or unexpected situations. Declarations eliminate internal hesitation and replace it with spiritual certainty. Each declaration you speak also reshapes your internal dialogue. The mind constantly speaks, constantly evaluates, constantly projects scenarios. When you allow your inner voice to run unchecked, it often drifts toward fear, doubt, worry, or confusion. But when you speak declarations, you override negative internal patterns with truth. You disrupt mental cycles that used to drain your strength. You shift your internal compass away from pessimism and toward promise. A declared word has the power to silence destructive thoughts and elevate divine thinking. It becomes a shield against mental attacks, intrusive thoughts, and emotional heaviness. Over time, your mind begins to default to faith rather than fear because declarations have trained your consciousness to anticipate breakthrough rather than breakdown. Declarations also influence your spiritual authority. Authority is not just something you possess, it is something you activate through use. A silent believer is often a defeated believer because authority is exercised through words, decisions, and declarations. When you speak boldly, you are stepping into the identity God has given you: a spiritual legislator, an ambassador of the kingdom, someone with the power to enforce divine will. You become aware that your voice is not ordinary. It is a weapon. Your words carve out paths where there were none. They shut down negative cycles that used to repeat themselves week after week. They tear down spiritual strongholds that tried to linger over your life. They open doors that seemed sealed. They invite divine movement into places that looked stagnant. Authority becomes real when you start using it consistently through declarations spoken with faith and conviction. These declarations also serve to organize your week spiritually. Every week contains opportunities, challenges, interactions, decisions, and encounters. Without declarations, you walk into each situation reacting to whatever happens. But with declarations, you preset your spiritual agenda. You determine the emotional posture you will carry. You determine the level of focus you will maintain. You determine the boundaries you will enforce. You determine the grace you will walk in. You determine the level of favor you will expect. You are not wandering into your week, you are entering with direction. Declarations become the spiritual blueprint that your week follows. One of the greatest strengths of declarations is their ability to confront resistance before resistance appears. Every week contains invisible battles, attitudes that could irritate you, distractions that could pull you away from focus, unexpected challenges that could discourage you, spiritual interference that could delay your progress. When you speak declarations early, you are not reacting to these battles. You are preemptively disarming them. Your words become a spiritual defense system. They act as a shield. They act as a wall. They act as a barrier. They prevent negativity from entering your mind. They weaken the power of discouragement. They break the momentum of anything designed to disrupt your peace, your clarity, or your focus. Instead of being caught off guard, you walk into your week spiritually fortified. Declarations also open you up to divine opportunities. When you speak words of favor, alignment, clarity, and acceleration, you tune your spiritual awareness to recognize open doors. You begin to see possibilities that others overlook. You notice timing, redirection, and whispers of guidance that you would have missed without a spiritually awakened mind. Declarations lift you into a higher dimension of expectation. They unlock the creativity within you. They stimulate divine ideas. They attract people who carry solutions, resources, and connections. They place you in the right place at the right time. Many breakthroughs come not because situations changed, but because declaration changed your level of awareness, sensitivity, and readiness. When you speak declarations over your week, your emotional atmosphere transforms. Instead of waking up burdened, anxious, or overwhelmed, you rise empowered. You feel grounded in purpose. You feel centered in truth. You feel confident in God's guidance. Emotional turbulence begins to calm. Stress begins to lose its grip. Fear begins to fade. You walk with a steady heart, a composed spirit, and a peaceful mind because your declarations have already established the emotional tone for your week. Declarations also help you strengthen your identity. Many people live disconnected from who they really are, shaped by old experiences, old labels, old mistakes, or old conversations. But when you declare who God says, you are powerful, chosen, equipped, strengthened, protected, and guided, you begin to shed old identities that no longer serve your destiny. Your self-perception shifts. Your decisions start aligning with a stronger version of yourself. You stop tolerating what weakens you. You stop entertaining what distracts you. You stop engaging with what drains you. You live from a higher level of consciousness because declarations have elevated your awareness of your true identity. Consistency in declarations also builds spiritual momentum. The more you speak them, the more they shape you. The more you speak them, the more they shift your environment. The more you speak them, the more heaven responds. Declarations create a rhythm of alignment. Day after day, week after week, your words create layers of favor, layers of protection, layers of clarity, layers of strength. Momentum builds, resistance weakens, confidence grows. You begin walking in seasons you prayed for because declarations prepared the way. You begin experiencing breakthroughs that once felt distant because your words have been clearing the path ahead of you. Momentum is not accidental. It is created through repeated actions that reinforce divine alignment. Declarations also help you break patterns that used to repeat themselves in your life, whether those patterns are emotional, relational, financial, or spiritual. Declarations disrupt cycles that once seemed unbreakable. When you speak life to places where you once spoke fear, you starve old cycles. When you declare freedom in places where you once felt stuck, you break invisible chains. When you speak clarity into places where confusion used to dominate, you dismantle mental strongholds. When you declare purpose over days that used to feel directionless, you shift trajectories. Patterns change when proclamations change. The repetition of empowered speech gradually rewrites the blueprint of your life. Your declarations also become a testimony to your faith. When you speak bold words, you are demonstrating to yourself and to the spiritual world that you believe God's promise is more than you believe your circumstances. You are demonstrating that your faith is active, not passive. You are demonstrating that you trust the invisible more than the visible. You are demonstrating that your confidence is anchored not in what you see, but in what God has spoken. This testimony strengthens your spirit, attracts divine validation, and silences the voice of doubt. As you declare boldly each morning, you begin shaping not just your week, but your habits, your patterns, your mindset, your character, and your destiny. Your life begins to reflect the power of the words you speak. Favor becomes normal. Peace becomes consistent. Breakthrough becomes expected. Growth becomes natural. Purpose becomes clearer. And little by little, your entire life shifts into alignment with the declarations you faithfully release into the atmosphere each week, breaking negative cycles and commanding supernatural favor, strength, and clarity. Over every assignment, the head begins with the recognition that you are not bound by what has been. You are not confined by old patterns, old emotions, old limitations, or the old version of yourself that once reacted, doubted, or hesitated. You have been given spiritual authority to disrupt cycles that no longer serve your destiny. Every negative pattern that tries to repeat itself, whether it's fear, procrastination, emotional heaviness, confusion, lack, discouragement, or stagnation, relies on your silence to survive. But when you rise with intention and speak with authority, you break the momentum of what once kept you in the same place. You interrupt the script that the enemy tried to write over your life. You step out of agreement with the old and into alignment with divine possibility. You are not powerless. You are not stuck. You are not destined to repeat the same struggles week after week. You carry the capacity to shift your life spiritually, mentally, emotionally, and behaviorally through the words you speak and the posture you take at the beginning of your week. Negative cycles often hide in routine, in familiar emotions, in automatic responses, in thoughts that echo past experiences. They disguise themselves as that's just how I am, or this always happens to me. But once you become spiritually awakened, you realize these cycles are not your identity. They are patterns designed to drain, distract, delay, and discourage you from rising into the fullness of your purpose. Every time you break a cycle, you reclaim territory within yourself. You reclaim energy, clarity, focus, and spiritual authority. It begins internally before it manifests externally. When you decide that this week will not be a repetition of last week's anxiety, last year's frustrations, or yesterday's disappointments, something shifts. The spiritual realm responds. Your awareness intensifies. Your decisions sharpen. You feel a sense of empowerment rising within you as you declare that what used to control you will no longer have access to your mind, your emotions, or your future. Breaking negative cycles requires intentional spiritual confrontation. You cannot dismantle what you refuse to acknowledge. So you start by recognizing the patterns that show up at the beginning of your week. The heaviness you feel on Monday mornings, the lack of motivation that creeps in by midweek, the distractions that steal your focus, the emotional triggers that resurface unexpectedly, or the subtle discouragement that attempts to weaken your faith. Instead of accepting these experiences as normal, you confront them with your voice, your declarations, and your spiritual authority. You tell anxiety it has no place in your mind. You tell confusion it has no permission to influence your decisions. You tell fear that it cannot dictate your steps. You tell distraction that it will not rob you of progress. You tell lack that it cannot limit your vision. You tell every spiritual interference that it cannot shape your week. When you confront these patterns spiritually, you dismantle their hold before they have an opportunity to manifest physically. As you break old cycles, you also begin commanding supernatural favor over your week. Favor is not luck. Favor is divine assistance. It is grace working on your behalf. It is unseen movement, aligning situations, people, opportunities, and timing in your favor. It is doors opening that were previously closed. It is resources appearing when you need them. It is conversations happening at the right time. It is solutions emerging unexpectedly. It is the right people being drawn to you and the wrong people being kept away from you. Favor is a spiritual force. And when you command it at the beginning of your week, you are positioning yourself for alignment that elevates your steps. You are opening the pathway for divine orchestration. You are inviting God's supernatural involvement into every assignment, every interaction, and every decision. When you speak favor over your life, you are declaring that you will not struggle for what God has already assigned to you. You will not fight for what is yours. You will not labor in environments where grace is not present. Instead, you will walk in ease, clarity, open doors, divine timing, and supernatural acceleration. Supernatural favor begins to follow you when you speak it with conviction. You start seeing things shift. You receive unexpected emails, invitations, breakthroughs, solutions. You find yourself at the right place at the right time. You make decisions with greater confidence because favor assures you that you are not operating alone. Even in areas where you feel inexperienced or uncertain, favor fills the gap. Favor strengthens your voice, your presence, and your influence. It draws support to your vision and strength to your assignments. And the more you acknowledge it, the more it multiplies. Alongside favor, you must command supernatural strength over your week. Strength is not only physical, it is mental, emotional, spiritual, and relational. Some weeks require endurance. Some require resilience. Some require courage. Some require healing. Some require discipline. Strength is the ability to stay grounded when circumstances fluctuate. It is the ability to stay focused when distractions arise. It is the ability to stay hopeful when situations appear stagnant. It is the ability to keep moving when you feel tired. It is the ability to speak life when negativity tries to overshadow your thoughts. Supernatural strength lifts you above the limitations of your natural abilities. It expands your capacity. It enhances your stamina. It strengthens your mindset. It equips you to handle challenges with grace and clarity. When you command strength, your spirit becomes anchored. You move with confidence instead of hesitation. You remain calm instead of overwhelmed. You stay motivated instead of drained. This inner strength becomes the foundation upon which you build your week. It enables you to approach tasks with excellence, relationships with patience, responsibilities with clarity, and challenges with faith. Strength becomes your shield and your engine. It keeps you steady, focused, and grounded as you navigate your assignments. And when unexpected situations arise, as they often do, strength gives you the ability to respond rather than react, to progress rather than retreat, and to remain spiritually aligned rather than emotionally scattered. As you continue commanding strength, you begin feeling more in control of your inner world. Old triggers lose their intensity. Stress loses its voice. Overthinking loses its pull. Weakness transforms into resilience. Discouragement becomes temporary. You begin recognizing that nothing happening around you has the authority to dictate what happens within you unless you allow it. This realization liberates you. It empowers you. It positions you to handle your week from a place of inner mastery rather than emotional vulnerability. Another dimension of breaking cycles is commanding supernatural clarity. Clarity is one of the most powerful spiritual gifts you can activate at the beginning of your week. Many people become stuck, not because of lack of ability, but because of lack of clarity. Confusion drains energy. Uncertainty delays progress. Indecision creates internal conflict. But when you command clarity, you are asking God to illuminate your path, sharpen your discernment, and remove fog from your mind. You are asking for the wisdom to know what to prioritize, what to ignore, what to embrace, and what to release. Clarity helps you distinguish between opportunities and distractions. It helps you hear God's voice above the noise of your thoughts. It helps you recognize timing, direction, and alignment. Without clarity, even good opportunities can lead to exhaustion. But with clarity, you move strategically, purposefully, and confidently. When you command clarity at the beginning of your week, you invite divine insight into your decisions. You begin seeing solutions faster. You recognize patterns that were previously hidden. You sense when something is not right. You experience inner guidance that redirects you toward what aligns with your purpose. Clarity removes hesitation and replaces it with decisive action. It protects your energy. It enhances your productivity. It strengthens your focus. It helps you avoid unnecessary conflict. It empowers you to move forward without second-guessing yourself. And as you live with more clarity, you also live with more peace. Breaking negative cycles also requires you to shift your internal environment. You cannot break cycles externally if you are still entertaining them internally. So you begin replacing old thoughts with new declarations. You override fear with faith. You replace doubt with expectancy. You silence insecurity with identity. You dismantle shame with worthiness. You counter resistance with perseverance. You affirm what God has spoken instead of what